Well, we've got the first acquittal in the January 6th insurrection, and some folks in the MSM
are not too happy about it.
Viva Frei, Montreal litigator turned YouTuber, and this is Winnie the Westie, and I have time for a car vlog today because I have exactly 2 hours before my interview with the Honourable Brian Peckford about his federal challenge to some of the stuff that has been going on in Canada, and in that time, there has been some update in the January 6th insurrection. The first accused individual has now been found not guilty in those
things.
The accused has been found not guilty, and some folks in the MSM, by the sounds of it, are not too happy about that. Now, before we get there, just for those of you who have been living under a rock, you might have heard about this thing called the January 6th insurrection, the insurrection for which no evidence was actually found, as determined by the FBI itself. From the Independent, FBI finds no evidence Capitol riot was coordinated. Dozens of followers of far-right militias have been charged with conspiracy from the January 6th riots, but the FBI doesn't believe they had a plan once they entered the U.S. Capitol. The FBI has reportedly found no evidence that far-right allies of Donald Trump conspired to overturn the presidential election during the January 6th assault on the U.S. Capitol, according to law enforcement officers briefed on the investigation. But never let facts get in the way of a good narrative, and as we all now know, politics ruins everything. They went after everyone and anyone who had anything to do with the January 6th assault on the Capitol, and I mean anyone. They went after grandmothers who pleaded guilty, the QAnon shaman who also pleaded guilty, and I said it then and I'm going to say it now, a lot of these people who pleaded guilty,
I bet, are going to regret those decisions.
And if you don't believe me when I say that actual literal grandmothers were prosecuted for non-violent crimes and actually pleaded guilty to those charges, good for you. You shouldn't believe me. Trust but verify. Here's an article from the news. 13 WTHR, and it looks like the peacock from I forget what station that is. Indiana grandmother becomes first defendant sentenced in Capitol riot, avoids jail time. Anna Morgan Lloyd is not the first Capitol riot defendant to agree to plead guilty. However, on Wednesday, she became the first to be sentenced. Indianapolis. An Indiana woman has become the first of nearly 500 defendants to be sentenced for the Jan 6 insurrection at the U.S. Capitol, and she avoided time behind bars. Anna Morgan Lloyd, 49, of Bloomfield, Indiana, was sentenced Wednesday to 3 years of probation, 120 hours of community service, and a fee of $500 in restitution after admitting to entering the Capitol. She pleaded guilty to a single misdemeanor charge under a deal with prosecutors. Well, at the very least, I guess she should be thankful that she was not sentenced to any jail time. Not everyone was quite so lucky, such as the QAnon shaman, who was sentenced to 41 months in jail for his participation in the events of January 6th. From BBC News, Capitol riot, quote, QAnon shaman, end quote, Jacob Chansley sentenced to 41 months in prison. A prominent supporter of the baseless QAnon conspiracy has been sentenced to 41 months in prison for his involvement in the U.S. Capitol riots. Jacob Anthony Chansley was among the Trump supporters who tried to stop Congress from certifying the 2020 presidential election on 6 January. He pleaded guilty to one felony count of obstruction in an official proceeding. His sentence is among the longest so far given in connection with the riots. Oh yeah, and if you don't find that shocking enough on its face, this is after he spent 11 months in pretrial detention. Later on in the same article, he has been in custody nearly 11 months since being arrested just days after the riot. I guess after keeping someone in pretrial detention for 11 months, they will plead guilty to anything thinking it might grant them their freedom, and lo and behold, after pleading guilty, after spending 11 months in pretrial detention, he was sentenced to 41 months in prison.
What a load of shit.
Well, now it seems that one of the accused of the events of that day has actually been found not guilty, which leads me to believe that some of the people who pleaded guilty thinking they were going to get just a slap on the wrist might regret that decision, but lo and behold, it doesn't seem that the people in the MSM are quite too happy about this acquittal. From CNN Politics, man who said Jan 6 was, quote, magical, end quote, acquitted in U.S. Capitol riot case. A federal judge on Wednesday found Matthew Martin not guilty of 4 federal misdemeanors related to trespassing, marking the first time a U.S. Capitol riot defendant was acquitted of all charges. Martin, who worked for a government contractor before his arrest following the riot, successfully argued that a U.S. Capitol Police officer waved him into the building. At least one video played during the trial appeared to show an officer moving his arm in a waving motion. This may come as something of a surprise to people who only get their news from the likes of CNN and MSNBC, but to everyone else who has a broader spectrum of where they get their news from, it was pretty well known from the early days of this alleged insurrection that there were some serious questions that the police had to answer. Why were they in fact waving people in? Why were they in fact opening doors? Why were they in fact removing barriers that were holding the protesters back if they were not welcome, allowed to go into the building?
This was a video that was posted earlier. U.S. Capitol Police, they're going to have to answer a hell of a lot of questions because this is a video where they had barricades where they literally remove the barricades and allow these people to come onto the premises. What the hell is the point of barricades, D? There were these videos of the Capitol Police escorting some people down the steps, some of them taking selfies with some of these people.
Although it may have been politically unpopular and I dare say almost politically dangerous to say it at the time, a lot of people who knew better knew that these defendants had pretty robust defenses, but alas, lock people in jail for long enough, put them in solitary confinement for long enough, they will plead guilty to anything. But now that some people are taking it to the merits, they are in fact getting acquitted. They are getting acquitted, and the likes of CNN don't like it that much, and when they don't like it, who are they going to go after? They're going to go after the judge. The acquittal is a major milestone in the massive January 6th investigation, as hundreds of people face the same misdemeanors as Martin. Dozens of rioters have alleged that they were allowed into the Capitol by police officers and that they did not know entering the building was illegal. The not guilty verdict is likely to embolden more alleged rioters to head to trial with similar claims.
Thanks, Captain Obvious.
Martin was the first Capitol riot defendant to testify in his own defense. Quote, "If the cops weren't letting people in, I would not have gone in," end quote, Martin said during his testimony on Wednesday. Martin described the activity outside of the Capitol on January 6th as a, quote, "big block party," end quote. Quote, "It was a magical day in many ways," end quote, Martin said. And now getting to how CNN is going to go after the judge. McFadden has emerged as one of the most skeptical federal judges of the Justice Department's hardline prosecutorial approach in riot cases. In March, McFadden questioned whether the Justice Department had enough evidence to prove that defendant Coy Griffin had knowingly broken the law and found him guilty on one of two misdemeanor charges. Oh, those pesky, skeptical federal court judges always giving the defendant the benefit of the doubt. The article then goes on to conclude that there are over 530 similar cases pending, and I don't think they like the prospects of conviction, given the precedent that was set by this skeptical
Federal court judge.
Insurrection to some, block party to others, and ultimately an acquittal in this particular case, which undoubtedly will be used as a precedent in the prosecution of the other 530 plus defendants from January 6. So that's that, to be discussed further on Sunday with Robert Barnes during our live stream. If you like my videos, you like my content, you know what to do. Like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell, drop a comment in the comment section below because it feeds the algorithm. If you want to get some merch, we've got some links to the merch in the pinned comment. You can follow and support us on vivabarneslaw.locals.com. After you watch this, be sure to go check my interview with the Honorable Brian Peckford if you have not yet seen it. And with that said, peeps, now you know your vlog. Peace out.
They're going to have to answer a hell of a lot of questions because this is a video where they had barricades, where they literally remove the barricades and allow these people to come onto the premises. What the hell is the point of barricades, D? There were these videos of the Capitol Police escorting some people down the steps, some of them taking selfies with some of these people.